Good morning. How are you today? Hope everything is okay in your world. I'm not sure what happened to the beautiful, warm, sunshiny days we were having, but they have definitely disappeared for the moment, which is not so good. So we have usual British grey sort of weather today. And I don't know about you, it just makes me feel a little bit compared to the I felt over the last few days with such lovely sunshiny weather. Morning, Kate. Hope you're okay. So I'm going to just chat for a second whilst I wait for people to sort of come and find me and join me. So I'm aware that sometimes I just sort of leap into it and don't give people a chance to see that the live is happening and to come and join us. So the thing that I'm going to tell you about this morning is that I've had a bit of a DIY disaster when it comes to dyeing my hair. So most of my hair I managed to catch, but there's a whole chunk of it at the back and a lovely patch under here of grey that I've missed. So I shall be using the colourless later to take it off and then trying again another day. So not ideal, but there we go. These things happen. So yes, I was a bit like, it took me ages to actually get around to dyeing it. Now I need to take it all off again. Very annoying. Okay, so let's have a chat this morning so that I'm not on here for too long. Let's have a chat this morning about childhood. So I don't know if you've seen already, but I'm kind of doing a series of these to talk about what's happened in my past. So that you know that, this is my story too. I mean, I am my ideal client. I am the client of my soul in terms of the things that I've gone through, the things that I can help you guys through as well. So I'd talked previously about my early childhood, which actually was really happy. I had a really great early childhood and I'm very grateful for that. We didn't have much money and I focused very much sort of on money mindset for that because I thought that that was something that, might resonate with some people and because I wanted to, let you guys know the build up of my story. So the next part I'm going to talk to you about today is around when my childhood actually did become quite toxic. So when I was up to the age of 9, everything was fine. Mum and Dad and I were a bit of a team. I didn't have any siblings. We weren't well off, but we were happy and everything was great. Then we moved quite a long way away from my childhood home when I was about 9 years old. And this is kind of where it started to get really tricky and really difficult for me. And that then started off a series of about 20 years worth of really poor relationship between my parents. So when we moved to Sussex, we'd moved from Derbyshire, had a really strong northern accent. And in addition to that, was doing really, really well academically and went to a little village school when we moved where, it should have been lovely, but it absolutely wasn't. The class sizes were really, really small. There were only about 6 of us in my year. But I was new and I was different and I had a Derbyshire accent and the school had to order in other textbooks and things because I was much further on than the kids at school were. So I was a bit of a nerdy, clevery, goody two-shoes kind of person and a really easy target. So there was myself and this boy, Mark, and looking back on it, Mark got a big brunt of it as well. But he also wasn't the kind of person to be particularly sociable, so didn't kind of make a friend in him. So that was really, really difficult. And not only did the kids at the school bully me, but one of the girls there also got her older siblings to bully me. So if I was walking home from school, they would follow me and taunt me and everything. And it was really, really horrible. I was really scared. I really hated it. My parents did try to intervene with the school, but the school made it apparently clear that they weren't going to do anything about it. And so that was it. My parents were like, okay. And that was, I just felt so horribly unsupported that they just didn't do anything further. And more often than not, my dad would be the one who was at home when I got home from school. And he was very much, just ignore them. Don't worry about it. And he'd even say that sticks and stones rhyme, like that was helpful. And I felt massively unsupported. I suddenly felt that actually we weren't a team. My mum and dad weren't going to help me. They weren't going to support me. And I felt really let down by that. But it was teaching me to keep my feelings in because every time I was saying how I felt, somebody was telling me it didn't matter. Somebody was telling me that, it wasn't important and what have you. So basically what ended up happening is I just pushed everything down and didn't actually end up discussing anything with my parents. So that on its own, probably we'd have got past that and what have you. But then when I went to senior school, I was going through a stage where my parents thought I was ignoring them, you know, proper teenage stage and everything. And to be fair, based on, you know, some of my behaviours that probably weren't, you know, terribly wrong. But actually what was happening is I was having petit mal epilepsy seizures. So they're not seizures in terms of convulsions, they're seizures in terms of blackouts. And so on one occasion, my science teacher threw a board rubber at me. Do you remember the old board rubbers, which were like wooden on the top and felt on the bottom? He lobbed one of those at me and it hit me on the head, and I didn't react to it at all because I was in the middle of a blackout at the time, and the rest of my class apparently were like when that happened. And so they found out that I got epilepsy. But at the same time, Mum was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I was going through teenage years, I'd moved school, I'd had a really, really, really hard time. I'd been diagnosed with epilepsy and there was nobody there for me, not one person. So obviously my friends were to a certain extent, but they were like 11 as well. There's a limited amount of support you can give to an 11-year-old when you're 11. So my mum didn't cope very well with the illness, understandably. That's a big thing. And obviously at the time we didn't know whether it was going to be something that would be terminal or not. My dad didn't cope very well with it, so my mum would come to me with all of the problems. Oh, Kate's saying same. Oh, bless you. Really, really difficult times. Not sure whether that's the bullying or kind of what element of that is, but it's great to know that you are resonating with what I'm saying, Kate. And it was really, really difficult. So Dad wouldn't talk to Mum about what was going on. Mum would come to me. I was 11. I wasn't in a position to cope with it. I had my own stuff to cope with too, which I wasn't dealing with particularly well. And I didn't have any support and I didn't have anybody to offload on. Pastoral care at school was not really a massive thing. So it was very, very difficult time. And it created a really difficult relationship between myself and my parents. And I didn't open up to them, and on the odd occasion I'd bottle and then go bang. They'd be like, you're being really out of order, don't speak to us like that, etc. And nothing ever got heard. So I'm very open now, but I was very closed for a very long time because I was like, what's the point in talking to you? There's no point in me telling you what my issues are because you're just going to back me down. The reason I'm telling you this, apart from the fact that I want you to kind of know a little bit more about me, is because that's where it all starts. Our childhood is where we start to be programs. You know, we're not born to push our feelings away. We're not born, you know, when you think about it with a baby, if a baby has any needs, it cries. But obviously if we're taught time and time again, don't bring your feelings to me, then actually they won't. Apparently in orphanages, in sort of developing countries and what have you, there's barely any crying because there's not enough staff to go round, so the babies understand that if they cry nothing's going to happen, which slightly breaks my heart a little bit really. But because they haven't got a mum who's then going to come running and you know, help them sort them out and what have you, as a result of that they decide that there's no value in crying because it doesn't get them anything. And that's the same with us. If we're told constantly we're not important, our feelings aren't important, even if they're not the words being used, if that's what's being implied by the actions and the responses, we just stop. So all of the things that are a problem for you now, they would have started in childhood. So if you have a lack of self-confidence, for example, if you have pain that has happened from your childhood, if you have things that trigger you, you need to look back at childhood and work out where that has actually come from, because that is going to be the key to kind of unlocking it. If you don't have awareness about where the difficulty comes from, you can't make a decision about it. You need to understand exactly where the different elements are. So if you are having struggles, write down each of those struggles and see if they correspond to something that happened when you were young. It may not be abuse, it may not be trauma, it may not be, you know, emotional difficulties and what have you, but there are other difficulties. So loss. So if you lost somebody close to you when you were a child, that can have an impact. Being a young carer, that can have an impact. You know, there are so many different elements, so it's not always the straightforward, I had a terrible childhood. Sometimes people think I had an amazing childhood, but don't understand the patterns come from there. So if you are having difficulties and struggling, look back to then. Do you know exactly where those problems came from? You may even know that you have difficulty now and that you have difficulties in childhood, but try and pin them down. And if you need any help with that, then that is what I do. I specialise in helping women who have toxic pasts to heal from what's happened in order for them to move on. Once you understand what you went through, what it developed, you can make choices then about what you do with that information. I would love to chat to you, so reach out to me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, let me know if you're on replay. And I will speak to you again next part of the story. Honestly, there are so many chapters, it's unreal. But it has got me to where I am today. It has really, really helped me. I don't regret the journey. Obviously, there are elements of it that make me sad, but as I'm healing from it, I understand the pathway that it's taken me on. And the pathway has led to me being able to help lots of gorgeous women like yourself to be able to move forward. So pop your comments below. I'll chat to you soon. Take care.